Marcus Chun felt the familiar weight of his plasma rifle against his shoulder as he surveyed the alien landscape through his helmet's display. The crystalline formations of Zirian Prime stretched endlessly before him, their purple hues reflecting the twin suns overhead. 3 months into his deployment with the Terran Defense Corps, he had grown accustomed to the strange beauty of this frontier world, but today something felt different. His comm crackled to life. Chun, report to Sector 7 immediately. We've got movement near the diplomatic convoy. Marcus acknowledged the order and activated his jump pack, soaring over the jagged terrain toward the coordinates. The diplomatic mission to Zirian Prime represented humanity's first formal contact with the Zephyrian Empire, a powerful alien civilization that controlled 12 star systems. The stakes couldn't be higher. As he approached Sector 7, Marcus spotted the convoy of hover vehicles moving slowly through a narrow canyon. The sleek Zephyrian transports gleamed like liquid mercury, their organic curves a stark contrast to the angular human escort vehicles. According to the mission briefing, Princess Lorelei of House Vaelthra was aboard one of those transports, traveling to the human embassy to finalize the peace accords. A flash of movement caught his eye. On the canyon rim above, dark shapes were positioning themselves among the rock formations. Marcus enhanced his visual feed and felt his blood run cold. Krillian raiders, their distinctive chitinous armor unmistakable even at this distance. The insectoid species had been harassing both human and Zephyrian settlements for months, apparently determined to prevent any alliance between the two powers. Control, this is Chun. I got hostile contacts, Canyon Rim, north side. Estimate 20 to 30 Krillian raiders setting up for an ambush. Copy that, Chun. Convoy is too far into the canyon to turn back. Can you buy them time to reach the checkpoint? Marcus checked his weapon systems and surveyed the tactical situation. The raiders had the high ground and superior numbers, but they hadn't spotted him yet. His training kicked in as he calculated angles of attack and escape routes. Affirmative control. Moving to engage. The first plasma bolt took out a Krillian sniper before the raider even knew death was coming. Marcus rolled behind cover as the alien formation erupted into chaos, their clicking language filling the comm channels with what he assumed were very unflattering descriptions of his parentage. Return fire sizzled past his position, leaving molten scars in the crystalline rock. Marcus counted muzzle flashes and estimated positions, then activated his tactical grenades. The explosions sent rainbow shards of crystal raining down into the canyon, and he used the distraction to relocate. Below, the convoy had increased speed but was still minutes away from safety. Marcus keyed his comm to the diplomatic frequency. Convoy actual, this is Terran defense. You've got approximately 20 hostiles on the north rim. Recommend evasive maneuvers and maximum speed. A melodic voice responded, speaking accented but clear Terran standard. Terran Defender, this is Princess Lorelei. We are aware of the situation. Are you alone up there? Affirmative, Your Highness. But I've got this handled. He punctuated his words by putting a plasma bolt through a Krillian heavy weapons specialist, sending the alien tumbling into the canyon. The remaining raiders were adapting quickly, using their superior numbers to flank his position. Marcus found himself pinned down behind increasingly inadequate cover as concentrated fire ate away at his protection. His tactical display showed the convoy was still 2 minutes from the checkpoint. 2 minutes might as well be 2 hours given his current situation. A Krillian shock grenade detonated nearby, sending him sprawling. His armor's systems compensated for the electromagnetic pulse, but several subsystems flickered offline. Terran Defender, we are stopping to assist, came Princess Lorelei's voice over the comm. Negative. Keep moving. That's an order. You do not give orders to royalty of the Zephyrian Empire, she replied with what sounded suspiciously like amusement. But your concern is noted. Marcus watched in amazement as one of the Zephyrian transports broke from the convoy and began ascending the canyon wall. The organic-looking vehicle seemed to flow up the nearly vertical surface like liquid mercury, defying gravity. Weapon ports opened along its hull, revealing technology that made human plasma weapons look primitive. Beams of coherent energy lanced out from the ascending transport, striking Krillian positions with surgical precision. The aliens' return fire sparked harmlessly off energy shields that shimmered like soap bubbles around the craft. In seconds, the tactical situation had completely reversed. Marcus used the distraction to advance on the remaining raiders. His rifle barked repeatedly, each shot finding its mark with the accuracy that had made him the top graduate of his sniper school. The combination of human aggression and Zephyrian technology proved devastating. Within minutes, the canyon rim was cleared of hostiles. The Zephyrian transport settled onto a level area of crystalline rock near Marcus's position. A section of the hull dilated like an iris, and a figure emerged that made him momentarily forget his military bearing. Princess Lyralii was tall and elegant, even by Zephyrian standards. Her skin held a faint opalescent quality that shifted between blue and silver as she moved. Delicate ridges traced the sides of her elongated skull, and her large eyes held an intelligence that seemed to peer directly into his soul. She wore form-fitting armor that looked more like art than protection, its surface covered in intricate patterns that seemed to move in the peripheral vision. "You fought well, human," she said as she approached. Her voice carried harmonics that human vocal cords could never produce. "Though your tactics were somewhat aggressive." Marcus removed his helmet and stood at attention. "Standard human military doctrine, Your Highness. Sometimes aggressive is all we've got." She tilted her head, studying him with obvious curiosity. "Marcus Chun, according to my translation system. Age 26, born on Terra Colony World, New Shanghai. Top of your class in multiple combat specializations. Interesting. Your Highness has access to Terran military records. My father believes in knowing our potential allies thoroughly." She gestured toward the scattered Krillian bodies. "Though after today's performance, I suspect potential may be an unnecessary qualifier." Before Marcus could respond, his comm unit screamed in alert. His tactical display lit up with new contacts, dozens of them, approaching from 3 directions. The original raider force had apparently been just the advanced scouts. "Your Highness, we need to get you back to the convoy immediately." Princess Lyralii consulted a device on her wrist that projected a 3-dimensional tactical display into the air between them. The approaching forces were massive, easily 100 Krillian warriors supported by armor and air support. "The convoy cannot outrun this force," she said calmly. "And my transport, while fast, cannot carry more than 2 passengers at maximum speed." Marcus felt the familiar, cold calculation of combat assessment settle over his mind. The numbers were impossible. Even if he could hold this position for a few minutes, the convoy would never make it to safety. "There's another option," he said slowly. "Your transport shields and weapons could clear a path through their lines. If we can get you to the human base, you'll be safe, and the peace talks can continue." "And abandon my escort? My retainers? That is not acceptable. It's the only way to ensure the mission succeeds. The peace between our peoples is more important than any individual lives." Princess Lyralii's large eyes studied him with an intensity that was almost physical. "Even your own life, Marcus Chun, especially mine. I'm just one soldier. You're the future of 2 civilizations." The sound of approaching Krillian aircraft reached them, a high-pitched whine that made the crystal formations around them ring like bells. Marcus checked his weapon and prepared for what would likely be his final battle. "There is another way," the princess said quietly, "but it would require trust between us. Complete trust." "What do you mean?" Instead of answering, she placed her hand on his arm. Even through his armor, he could feel warmth that seemed to penetrate to his bones. Her touch brought with it a sensation unlike anything in his experience, a connection that bypassed all his normal senses. "Zephyrians can share consciousness temporarily," she explained. "Our minds can link, allowing perfect coordination. But it requires absolute trust and openness. No barriers, no secrets, no deception. Marcus stared at her, understanding the implications immediately. She was offering to let him into her mind, to share her thoughts and emotions while accepting his in return. For a species as telepathically sensitive as the Zephyrians, it would be the ultimate act of vulnerability. Why would you trust a human you just met with something like that? Because you were willing to die to protect people you've never met, to preserve a peace you might never live to see. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are, Marcus Chun. The Krillian forces were visible now, dark shapes moving through the crystal forest below. His tactical computer estimated less than 3 minutes before they would be in weapons range. What exactly are you proposing? Princess Lyralii moved closer, her eyes never leaving his. A fighting link, your combat experience, and human intuition combined with my knowledge of Zephyrian technology and telepathic awareness. Together, we might accomplish what neither of us could alone. Marcus found himself nodding before he'd consciously made the decision. There was something about her, a combination of strength and compassion that spoke to something deep in his soldier's soul. If he was going to die today, he could think of worse ways to go than defending this remarkable being. What I need to do? She smiled then, an expression that transformed her already beautiful features into something approaching the divine. Simply trust me and lower your mental barriers. Princess Lyralii placed both hands on either side of his head, her fingers surprisingly warm against his temples. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the world exploded into sensation. Marcus gasped as her consciousness touched his, like diving into an ocean of liquid starlight. He felt her surprise at the intensity of his emotions, the rigid discipline that overlay a core of protective instinct that burned like a forge. In return, he experienced her perspective, the vast loneliness of royalty, the weight of responsibility for an entire civilization, and underneath it all, a fierce determination to prove worthy of her people's trust. But more than emotion flowed between them. Knowledge transferred at thought speed. He suddenly understood the principles behind Zephyrian weapons, could feel the quantum fluctuations that powered their energy shields, knew instinctively how to interface with technology that operated on pure, well, rather than manual controls. She gasped in turn as his tactical knowledge flooded her awareness. Centuries of human warfare, the evolution of strategy and weapons technology, the psychological profiles of dozens of alien species, all downloaded in seconds. She experienced his understanding of the Krillian raiders, their weaknesses, their predictable patterns, their fear of direct confrontation with technologically superior opponents. When the connection stabilized, Marcus found he could sense her presence in his mind like a warm fire on a cold night. Her transport systems were now as familiar as his own rifle. When he looked at the tactical display, he saw it through her eyes as well, understanding threat assessments and probability matrices that his human education had never covered. "This is incredible," he whispered. "Focus, warrior," she replied, but he could feel her amusement through their link. "We have visitors arriving." The first Krillian attack wave crested the canyon rim like a chitinous tide. Marcus and Princess Lyralii moved as one toward her transport, their actions perfectly synchronized. She initiated the takeoff sequence while he configured the weapon systems, their shared knowledge allowing them to operate with an efficiency that would have been impossible for either alone. The transport lifted smoothly, its gravitic systems making the ascent feel like floating rather than flying. Through the princess's enhanced senses, Marcus could perceive the Krillian warriors as heat signatures, their emotional states, even their tactical communications. "They're more afraid than angry," he observed, sharing his analysis through their link. "This is a desperate gambit, not a planned military operation." "Agreed," she responded. "Someone is pushing them to this. The Krillians are raiders and pirates, not soldiers. They prefer easy targets." The transport's weapons came online under Marcus's guidance, but he found himself hesitating. Through the princess's senses, he could feel the life force of each enemy combatant, their hopes and fears, their desperate hunger for survival in a galaxy that offered their species few options. "They're still trying to kill us," Princess Lyralii said gently, sensing his reluctance. "And, more importantly, they're trying to destroy the peace our peoples need." Marcus nodded and began engaging targets with surgical precision. The transport's energy weapons were far more advanced than anything in the human arsenal, capable of stunning rather than killing when configured properly. Under his guidance, Krillian warriors dropped unconscious rather than dying, their weapons disabled and their equipment destroyed but their lives preserved. Effective, the princess noted, and merciful. This is not typical human combat doctrine. "Maybe it should be," Marcus replied, surprising himself with the thought. Through their link, he felt her approval wash over him like warm sunlight. The transport danced between Krillian aircraft with impossible grace, the princess's piloting skills enhanced by Marcus's tactical awareness. Enemy fire splashed harmlessly off their shields while their return fire systematically dismantled the attacking formation. Within minutes, the remaining Krillian forces were in full retreat. "Convoy actual. This is Princess Lyralii. The immediate threat has been neutralized. Resume course to the embassy." "Copy that, Your Highness. Outstanding work up there." As they settled back onto the canyon rim to await the convoy's arrival, Marcus found himself reluctant to break the mental connection. The princess's presence in his mind felt natural now, like discovering a sense he'd never known he possessed. "The link will fade naturally over the next few hours," she said softly. "But some echo of it will remain. Zephyrians who forge such bonds are forever changed by the experience." "Change how?" She turned to look at him directly, her opalescent skin shifting through shades of blue and silver. "We become more than we were alone. The connection creates possibilities that neither party could achieve independently." Before Marcus could ask what she meant, his comm unit chimed with an incoming priority message. The convoy commander's face appeared on his display, expression grim. "Chun, we've got a problem. Long-range sensors are picking up a massive Krillian fleet moving toward this system. 300 ships, maybe more. They'll be here in 18 hours. Marcus felt the princess stiffen beside him, her mental presence suddenly blazing with alarm. Through their link, he sensed her accessing vast databases of tactical information, calculating probabilities and strategic options with computer-like speed. "The peace accords," she whispered. "If the Krillians can prevent the signing, if they can eliminate the diplomatic mission, the war between our species continues. Neither side strong enough to stop the raids." Marcus finished. "They're betting everything on this one attack." The convoy vehicles were approaching now, their sleek forms navigating the crystal formations with practiced ease. But Marcus could see the fear in the escort commanders' faces, the knowledge that 18 hours was nowhere near enough time to evacuate the diplomatic mission to safety. "Your Highness," the convoy commander transmitted, "we need to get you off-world immediately. If the Krillians are committing this level of force." "No." Princess Lyralii's voice carried absolute authority. "The peace talks will proceed as scheduled. If we run now, there may never be another chance." Marcus felt her determination through their link, but also her calculation. She was considering options that terrified and amazed him in equal measure. Through her enhanced senses, he could perceive the vast Krillian fleet approaching through hyperspace, a dark tide of hatred and desperation that would wash away everything they had worked to build. "There has to be another way," he said. Princess Lyralii smiled, and, through their mental connection, Marcus felt the full weight of her plan. It was audacious, dangerous, and completely insane. It was also their only chance. "Marcus Chun," she said formally, "how would you like to save 2 civilizations?" The Terran embassy on Zirian Prime had been hastily constructed from prefabricated modules, but it possessed the one thing they desperately needed, a quantum communications array capable of real-time contact with Earth and the Zephyrian homeworld. Princess Lyralii stood before the holographic display in the embassy's main conference room, her opalescent skin reflecting the blue light of star charts and tactical projections. Marcus remained close beside her, still feeling the echo of their mental link like a phantom limb. Through their fading connection, he could sense the rapid calculations running through her mind as she analyzed the approaching Krillian fleet. The numbers were staggering. Over 300 warships, including several massive dreadnoughts that outmassed anything in either the human or Zephyrian fleets. The question, Princess Lyralii said to the assembled diplomatic staff, is not whether we can fight them off. We cannot. The question is whether we can make our deaths meaningful enough to ensure the peace survives us. Ambassador Harrison, the senior human diplomat, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Your Highness, surely evacuation remains an option. If we can preserve the leadership. The Krillians have positioned interdiction ships around the system's hyperspace nodes, the princess interrupted gently. Nothing larger than a fighter can escape, and they will arrive before any rescue force could reach us. Marcus studied the tactical display, his enhanced understanding of Zephyrian technology revealing details that would have been invisible to him hours ago. The enemy fleet was moving in a precise formation, their approach vector designed to eliminate any possibility of escape while minimizing their own casualties. They're not here to raid, he observed. This is an extermination mission. They mean to kill everyone involved in the peace talks and blame it on the other side. Princess Lyralii nodded, her large eyes reflecting the starlight from the display. Precisely. The Krillians cannot defeat either of our civilizations individually, but they can ensure we remain enemies. As long as humans and Zephyrians fight each other, the Krillians can continue their piracy with impunity. Through their mental echo, Marcus felt her resolve crystallizing around a plan that terrified him. She was considering something beyond dangerous, something that would require sacrifices he wasn't sure either of them was prepared to make. What are you thinking? He asked quietly. Her smile was sad but determined. I am thinking that sometimes the greatest victories require the greatest risks. She turned to address the room. How many functional warships do we have in system? Captain Martinez, the senior human naval officer present, consulted his datapad. 12 destroyers and 3 frigates. The Zephyrian escort consists of 8 cruisers and 2 battleships, against 300 enemy vessels. He trailed off, the mathematics speaking for themselves. The embassy's defensive grid might hold for an hour, added Commander Thyrell, the Zephyrian military attaché. His blue-scaled features bore the ritual scarification of a veteran warrior. Perhaps longer if we route all power to the shields. An hour, Princess Lyralii mused. Time enough to complete the peace accords and transmit them to both homeworlds. The treaty would be legally binding even if we all died immediately afterward. Marcus felt his human pragmatism rebelling against what amounted to a suicide pact. There has to be another way. What about the planet's defenses? The mining stations? Civilian installations with minimal armament, Captain Martinez replied. The Krillians could destroy them as an afterthought. Princess Lyralii moved to the communications console and began entering commands. I am establishing a direct link to the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet Command and the Terran Admiralty. If we are to die here, at least our leaders will witness the signing of the peace accords. The holographic display shimmered and split, revealing 2 additional figures. On one side appeared Admiral Chinjiaowei of the Terran Space Force, his weathered features grim with concern. On the other materialized High Admiral Sulthanes of the Zephyrian Imperial Navy, her crystalline armor reflecting points of light like captured stars. Your Highness, Admiral Sulthanes spoke in the musical tones of formal court Zephyrian. We have been monitoring the situation. A relief fleet has been dispatched, but will arrive in 72 hours, Princess Lyralii finished. Yes, we are aware. The Krillians timed this perfectly. Admiral Chen leaned forward, his dark eyes intense. Princess, we cannot allow the diplomatic mission to be destroyed. The peace talks represent the best hope for both our peoples. Then, we proceed, she replied simply. Ambassador Harrison, please prepare the final accords for signing. We have approximately 6 hours before the enemy fleet arrives. Marcus felt a surge of protective instinct that surprised him with its intensity. The mental link might be fading, but his connection to this remarkable alien princess had become something deeper than mere tactical cooperation. The thought of losing her, of watching the Krillian fleet tear through their pitiful defenses, filled him with a cold rage that reminded him why humans had earned their reputation as fierce warriors. Wait, he said, an idea beginning to form. What if we don't fight them? The room fell silent, all eyes turning toward him. Through the fading link, he felt Princess Lyraliai's curiosity spike. Explain, she said. Marcus moved to the tactical display and began manipulating the projections, his enhanced understanding of Zephyrian technology allowing him to operate the advanced systems intuitively. The Krillians are expecting resistance. Their formation, their approach vector, everything is designed to counter a defensive strategy. And you propose we simply surrender? Commander Thyrel's voice carried barely controlled anger. No, I propose we disappear. Marcus enhanced the display to show the crystal formations covering Zirian Prime surface. Through his link with Princess Lyraliai, he had learned that the crystals weren't just decorative geology. They were resonant structures that amplified and focused various forms of energy, including the exotic particles used in Zephyrian technology. The crystal formations across this planet form a natural network, he continued. According to the geological surveys, some of these formations extend for hundreds of kilometers underground. If we could tap into that network. Princess Lyraliai's eyes widened as she understood the implications. A planetary cloaking field. Theoretical, but she began entering rapid calculations into the display. The power requirements would be enormous. What about the embassy's reactor? Marcus asked. Combined with the power cores from our warships? Still insufficient. Princess Lyraliai paused, studying the readings. Unless, through their fading connection, Marcus felt her mind racing through possibilities, examining options that grew increasingly dangerous. When she reached her conclusion, he felt his blood turn cold. No, he said flatly. Absolutely not. What are you two talking about? Admiral Chen demanded. Princess Lyraliai straightened, assuming the formal bearing of Zephyrian royalty. My transport is equipped with an experimental quantum resonance drive. If we could integrate it with the crystal network and channel the combined power output of our entire fleet through the formations, you'd create a cloaking field large enough to hide the entire diplomatic installation. Admiral Sulthanes finished, her harmonious voice carrying overtones of amazement. But the energy feedback would destroy any ship connected to the network. A small price, the princess said calmly, for saving 2 civilizations. Marcus stepped between her and the communications console, his military bearing radiating determination. There has to be another way. We're not sacrificing our entire fleet just to hide for a few days. The Krillian fleet will eventually leave, Princess Lyraliai replied patiently. They cannot maintain such a large force indefinitely. Once they withdraw, the relief fleets will arrive. And what about the ships already in orbit? What about the people aboard them? Through their fading link, Marcus felt her pain at the necessary sacrifice, but also her absolute conviction that it was the only way to preserve the peace. The weight of 2 civilizations' future pressed down on her shoulders, and he could sense her willingness to bear that burden no matter the cost. The crews can evacuate to the surface, she said. The cloaking field will protect them as well. Except for whoever stays behind to monitor the power flow, Marcus pointed out grimly. Someone has to maintain the resonance cascade, and that someone will be at the epicenter of enough energy to power a small star. Princess Lyraliai met his gaze steadily. Yes, Someone will have to make that sacrifice. The room erupted in voices as the various officers and diplomats began arguing the merits and dangers of the plan. Marcus tuned them out, focusing instead on the echo of the princess's thoughts. Through their connection, he could feel her preparing to volunteer for the suicide mission, her royal training demanding that she lead from the front no matter the consequences. "No," he said again, this time speaking directly to her through their mental link. "I won't let you do it. It is not your choice to make, Marcus Chun," she replied in the same manner, her mental voice carrying gentle finality. "I am the ranking representative of the Zephyrian Empire. The responsibility is mine." Then, we find another way. Before she could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the embassy. The communications display flashed red as emergency signals flooded the channels. "Enemy fleet is accelerating," Captain Martinez announced grimly. "They've increased speed beyond safe hyperspace tolerances. New arrival time, 3 hours, 18 minutes. Marcus felt Princess Lyraliai's shock through their connection. The Krillians had apparently decided to risk catastrophic drive failures rather than give their intended victims any additional time to prepare. "They're desperate," he observed. "More desperate than we realized. Or they have information we lack," the princess replied thoughtfully. She turned to Admiral Silthanes. "Hi, Admiral. Has there been any change in the strategic situation? Any reason the Krillians might accelerate their timeline?" The Zephyrian commander's expression grew troubled. "There have been reports of unrest in the Krillian home systems. Food shortages, territorial disputes, several colonies on the verge of rebellion. It appears their leadership believes this operation is their last chance to maintain control. A government under pressure makes dangerous decisions," Admiral Chun added grimly. "They might be willing to sacrifice more ships than we calculated." Marcus studied the updated tactical projections, noting the energy signatures of the approaching fleet. Something about the readings bothered him, a pattern he couldn't quite identify. Through his enhanced understanding of Zephyrian sensors, he could perceive details that would have been invisible to purely human equipment. "Princess," he said slowly, "can you enhance the sensor analysis on the Krillian flagship?" She nodded and began entering commands. The display zoomed in on the massive dreadnought leading the enemy formation. As the resolution increased, Marcus felt his suspicions confirmed. "Those aren't standard Krillian energy signatures," he announced to the room. "Someone else is involved." Princess Lyraliai studied the readings with growing alarm. "Thraxian technology," she whispered. "But the Thraxian Empire is supposedly neutral in this conflict." Marcus felt pieces of a larger puzzle clicking into place. The Thraxians were an ancient, technologically advanced species that rarely involved themselves in the affairs of younger civilizations. If they were supporting the Krillian raiders, they want the war to continue, he realized. The Thraxians profit from selling weapons to both sides. A human-Zephyrian alliance would threaten their arms trade and provide a unified opposition to their expansionist policies, Princess Lyraliai added. Through their link, he felt her mind racing through the political implications. If this is a Thraxian operation using Krillian proxies, then we're not just fighting for peace between our peoples, Marcus finished grimly. We're fighting to prevent a much larger war. The weight of this revelation settled over the room like a physical presence. What had seemed like a piracy raid was actually the opening move in a conflict that could engulf half the galaxy. The stakes had just grown beyond anything any of them had imagined. All the more reason to proceed with the cloaking operation, Princess Lyraliai said firmly. We must preserve the peace accords and ensure that both our governments understand the true scope of the threat. Marcus felt her resolve crystallizing once again around the sacrifice play. Through their fading mental connection, he could sense her preparing to offer her life to power the planetary defense grid. The thought of losing her, of watching this remarkable being burn herself out like a candle in a hurricane, was unbearable. There's another option, he said quietly, his voice cutting through the tactical discussions. What if we don't hide from them? What if we make them come to us? Princess Lyraliai turned to study him, her large eyes reflecting curiosity and concern. Through their link, she sensed the direction of his thoughts and felt a spike of alarm. "Marcus, what are you considering?" He moved to the tactical display and began highlighting key installations across the planet's surface. The crystal formations that could power the cloaking field. They could also function as a massive weapons array. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Instead of hiding from the Krillian fleet, Marcus was proposing to turn the entire planet into a weapon. "The energy requirements," Commander Tyrell said slowly, "would still require someone to monitor the resonance cascade at close range." "Yes," Marcus replied, "but instead of maintaining a defensive field for days, we'd be channeling the power into a single, focused discharge. A few minutes at most." Through their mental link, he felt Princess Lyralii understanding the full scope of his plan. It was even more dangerous than the cloaking option, with a much higher chance of failure. But it also offered the possibility of not just surviving the attack, but actually striking back at the forces behind it. "You're proposing to use a planet as an artillery piece," she said with what sounded like admiration. "Only a human would conceive of something so audacious." "Only a Zephyrian would have the technology to make it work," Marcus replied. Princess Lyralii was quiet for a long moment, her consciousness brushing against his through their fading connection. He could feel her weighing the options, calculating probabilities, considering the lives that hung in the balance. Finally, she smiled. "Very well, Marcus-chun. Let us see if we can turn this world into the galaxy's largest surprise." The next 2 hours passed in a blur of frantic preparation as Princess Lyralii and Marcus worked to transform Zirian Prime from a diplomatic outpost into the galaxy's most unlikely fortress. The crystal formations covering the planet's surface hummed with increasing energy as Zephyrian engineers rerouted power from every available source into the resonance network. Marcus stood in the primary control chamber, a natural cavern deep within the largest crystal formation where the planet's energy lines converged. Holographic displays surrounded him, showing the progress of their desperate gambit. Through his fading mental connection with Princess Lyralii, he could feel her consciousness stretched across the entire planetary grid, her awareness monitoring thousands of energy nodes simultaneously. "Power levels at 60%, she announced, her physical form standing at the primary control console, while her mind interfaced directly with the planet's quantum infrastructure. "The Krillian fleet will be in weapons range in 47 minutes. Commander Tyrell appeared on the communications display, his scarred features grim with concern. "Your Highness, the evacuation of non-essential personnel is complete, but we're detecting massive energy buildup in the crystal formations. Some of our people are reporting headaches and disorientation from the resonance feedback. Acceptable side effects," Princess Lyralii replied, though Marcus could feel her concern through their link. The amount of energy they were channeling through the planet's natural systems was beyond anything in recorded history. "Continue monitoring the evacuation routes. We need all civilian personnel in the shielded shelters before we reach maximum power." Marcus studied the tactical display showing the approaching Krillian fleet. At this distance, their enhanced sensors could identify individual ship classifications and weapon loadouts. What they saw confirmed their worst fears about Thraxian involvement. "Princess, take a look at these readings," he said, highlighting a cluster of signals near the fleet's center. "Those aren't Krillian energy signatures at all." She turned her attention to the display, her opalescent skin shifting through shades of blue and silver as she analyzed the data. "Thraxian battle cruisers," she confirmed grimly. "At least 6 of them, using holographic camouflage to appear as Krillian vessels. They're not just providing technology," Marcus realized. "They're directly participating in the attack." The implications sent a chill through both of them. If the Thraxian Empire was willing to commit their own warships to prevent a human Zephyrian alliance, then the political situation was far more unstable than anyone had realized. This wasn't just about preventing peace between 2 species. It was about maintaining the balance of power in an entire galactic sector. Admiral Chun, Admiral Sulfanes, Princess Lyralii spoke to the holographic figures still maintaining their communication link. You need to see this. The display updated to show the true composition of the attacking fleet. Both admirals studied the readings with growing alarm. 6 Thraxian battle cruisers, Admiral Sulfanes said slowly. That represents a significant investment in this operation. More than that, Admiral Chun replied grimly. According to our intelligence, the Thraxians only have 24 ships of that class. They've committed a quarter of their heavy fleet to this attack. Marcus felt Princess Lyralii's shock through their mental link. The Thraxian Empire was one of the oldest and most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. For them to risk such valuable assets on what appeared to be a simple raid meant the stakes were even higher than they'd imagined. Power levels at 75%, Princess Lyralii announced, her voice strained despite her attempts to hide it. The mental effort of coordinating the planetary grid was taking a visible toll. Crystal formations are resonating at optimal frequencies. Through their connection, Marcus could feel the immense pressure she was under. The quantum energies flowing through the planet's crystal network were like trying to control a barely contained star. Every minute that passed brought them closer to either spectacular success or catastrophic failure. How are you holding up? He asked quietly, using their mental link rather than speaking aloud. I can maintain this for perhaps another hour, she replied, her mental voice tinged with exhaustion. After that, the resonance cascade will either stabilize on its own or tear the planet apart. Marcus moved closer to her position, noting the way her hands trembled slightly as she manipulated the control interfaces. The amount of mental energy required to coordinate the planetary grid was beyond human comprehension, yet she maintained perfect focus despite the strain. Enemy fleet is reducing velocity, Captain Martinez announced from the embassy. They're preparing to drop out of hyperspace. 32 minutes until weapons range, Commander Tyrell added. All defensive systems are online, but they won't last long against that much firepower. Princess Lyralii nodded, her attention divided between the tactical situation and the energy patterns flowing through the crystal network. Power levels at 85%. We're approaching the threshold for weapon activation. Marcus studied the readings with growing amazement. The sheer scope of what they were attempting was staggering. They were essentially turning an entire planet into a single massive weapon, channeling energies that could power entire star systems into a focused discharge. If it worked, the result would be devastating. If it failed, the backlash would likely destroy everything within several light years. Princess, he said carefully, what happens to you when we fire this thing? Through their mental link, he felt her hesitation before she answered. The resonance cascade requires continuous monitoring during the discharge. Someone must maintain the harmonic frequencies or the entire system will overload. That doesn't answer my question. She turned to look at him directly, her large eyes reflecting both determination and sadness. The feedback from a discharge this size will likely be fatal to whoever maintains the connection. Marcus felt his heart skip a beat. Despite knowing that someone would have to make the ultimate sacrifice, hearing it confirmed so calmly sent a spike of cold fear through his consciousness. There has to be another way, he insisted. Some kind of automated system, remote monitoring. The quantum resonance patterns are too complex for artificial systems, she replied gently. They require the intuitive adjustments that only a living consciousness can provide. Then I'll do it. You cannot. Your neural patterns are incompatible with Zephyrian technology at this level. The interface would kill you instantly. Marcus stared at her, understanding finally, hitting him with crushing clarity. She had known from the beginning that activating the planetary weapon would require her life. Everything about this plan, all the careful preparations and technical modifications, had been designed around her willingness to sacrifice herself for the peace between their peoples. You've been planning this all along, he said. Someone must make the choice, she replied simply. I'm the ranking representative of my people. The responsibility is mine. No. Marcus's voice carried the absolute authority of a combat veteran. I won't let you do it. Before Princess Lyralii could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the control chamber. The tactical display flashed red as new contacts appeared on the sensors. Krillian fleet dropping out of hyperspace, Captain Martinez announced. Multiple signatures, massive energy readings. They're deploying for full bombardment. The display updated to show the enemy formation spreading out across local space. 300 ships arranged in perfect attack formation, their weapons already charging for the assault. At the center of the fleet, the 6 Thraxian battle cruisers maintained their holographic disguises while radiating power signatures that dwarfed anything else in the attacking force. They're not even trying to negotiate, Commander Thyrell observed grimly. This is pure extermination. Princess Lyralii increased the power flow to the planetary grid, her consciousness stretching across the energy network with ever-growing strain. 92% power, she announced. Weapon systems coming online. Marcus watched in fascination as the planet itself began to respond to her commands. The massive crystal formations scattered across the surface started glowing with internal light, their harmonic resonance creating a low-frequency hum that seemed to vibrate through his bones. The very air around them shimmered with barely contained energy. Incredible, Admiral Sulthanes whispered from the communication link. The energy readings we're detecting are beyond our most optimistic projections. Princess, Admiral Chun said urgently, we're detecting massive power buildup from the Krillian fleet. They're preparing to fire. The tactical display showed dozens of weapon signatures charging across the enemy formation. Heavy plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, and exotic energy weapons that Marcus didn't recognize. When that much firepower was unleashed, nothing on the planet's surface would survive. 98% power, Princess Lyralii said, her voice now barely a whisper. The strain of coordinating the planetary grid was pushing her to the limits of endurance. Systems are approaching optimal resonance. Through their fading mental link, Marcus could feel her consciousness fragmenting under the pressure. She was simultaneously monitoring thousands of energy nodes, calculating quantum resonance frequencies, and maintaining the harmonic patterns that kept the entire system stable. No single mind, regardless of training or ability, should have been capable of such a feat. How long until we can fire? He asked. 3 minutes to optimal charge. But Marcus, she turned to look at him one final time. When the system reaches full power, I will need to transfer complete control of the planetary grid to the resonance cascade. The feedback will be instantaneous. Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. She was telling him goodbye. There has to be something I can do, he said desperately. Some way to share the load, reduce the strain. You have already done more than any human in history, she replied gently. You showed me that courage and honor are not exclusive to any single species. That alone makes this sacrifice worthwhile. Before he could respond, the display erupted with new alerts. The Krillian fleet had finished its targeting calculations and was beginning to open fire. Streams of energy lanced across space toward the planet, their combined power enough to sterilize the surface several times over. Incoming fire, Captain Martinez announced unnecessarily. Impact in 37 seconds. Princess Lyralii straightened, her royal bearing reasserting itself despite her obvious exhaustion. Planetary grid at maximum power. Weapon systems fully charged. Marcus watched the countdown display with a mixture of awe and terror. In less than a minute, Princess Lyralii would channel the power of an entire world into a single devastating attack. The energy discharge would likely destroy every ship in the Krillian fleet, but the cost would be her life. Princess, he said softly, it's been an honor. She smiled then, an expression of such radiant beauty that it took his breath away. The honor has been mine, Marcus Chun. Remember me to your people. Tell them that not all aliens are enemies. Her hands moved to the final control sequence, The commands that would transform Zirian Prime from a peaceful world into a weapon of unprecedented power. Marcus felt her consciousness expanding one last time through their mental link, touching his thoughts with warmth and gratitude. "Tell me about Earth," she said quietly as her fingers hovered over the activation controls. "Tell me about your home." Marcus understood what she was asking. In her final moments, she wanted to focus on something beautiful rather than the destruction they were about to unleash. Through their mental connection, he shared memories of blue oceans and green forests, of cities that sparkled like jewels in the night, of a world where billions of humans lived and loved and dreamed of the future. "It's beautiful," she whispered, her mental voice filled with wonder. "I would have liked to see it someday." The incoming Krillian fire was only seconds away from impact when Princess Lyralii activated the planetary weapon. The crystal formations across Zirian Prime blazed with light that was visible from orbit, their combined resonance creating a harmonic frequency that seemed to shake the very fabric of space. Marcus felt the discharge building through their mental link, a crescendo of power that defied comprehension. The planet itself had become a focusing lens for energies that could reshape the structure of matter. In moments, that power would be unleashed against the attacking fleet. But as Princess Lorelei prepared to channel the final resonance cascade, something unexpected happened. Marcus felt their mental link suddenly, strengthening rather than fading, his consciousness somehow anchoring hers against the crushing pressure of the planetary grid. "What?" she began, then stopped as understanding flooded through their connection. The mental bond they had formed during the battle with the Raiders hadn't faded as much as they'd thought. Instead, it had been growing stronger, creating a neural link that neither of them had fully understood. Marcus's human consciousness, shaped by entirely different evolutionary pressures, was providing a stabilizing influence that allowed Princess Lyralii to maintain control of the resonance cascade without burning herself out. Together, Marcus said, understanding flooding through him, "We do this together." Princess Lyralii's eyes widened with amazement and hope. "Yes," she whispered. "Together." They reached for the activation controls in unison, their minds fully synchronized for the first time since their initial link. Through their combined consciousness, Marcus could perceive the vast energies flowing through the planetary grid, while Princess Lyralii experienced his tactical awareness and human intuition. The Krillian bombardment struck the planet's upper atmosphere just as they activated the weapon. For a moment that seemed to last forever, two incompatible forces met in a collision of unimaginable violence. Then, the planetary grid discharged its accumulated power in a focused beam that tore through space like the birth cry of a new star. The beam of coherent energy that erupted from Zirian Prime's crystal formations carved through space with the intensity of a miniature supernova. Marcus felt the discharge through his neural link with Princess Lyralii, experiencing the raw power of an entire world channeled into a single moment of devastating purpose. The sensation was overwhelming, like touching the heart of creation itself. The Krillian fleet had no time to react. The planetary weapon's beam struck their lead formation at near-light speed, its exotic energies tearing through shields and armor as if they were made of paper. Massive dreadnoughts that had survived countless battles simply ceased to exist, their matter converted to energy in brilliant flashes that briefly outshone the system's twin suns. "Incredible." Admiral Chen's voice carried stunned amazement through the communication link. "Princess, the energy readings we're detecting. How is this possible?" But Princess Lyralii couldn't answer immediately. She and Marcus stood locked in their shared consciousness, their combined minds guiding the planetary weapon with precision that neither could have achieved alone. Through their link, Marcus could feel the incredible strain of controlling such vast energies, while Princess Lyralii drew strength from his human determination and tactical instincts. The beam swept across the enemy formation like the finger of an angry god. Ships that had seemed invincible moments before became expanding clouds of superheated plasma. The 6 Thraxian battle cruisers, their holographic disguises failing under the energy bombardment, tried desperately to retreat to hyperspace. But the planetary weapon's discharge had destabilized local space-time. Nothing could escape. "Target the command ship," Marcus said through their mental link, his tactical awareness identifying the massive vessel at the fleet center. "If we can eliminate their leadership." "Agreed," Princess Laurelii responded, adjusting the beam's focus with delicate precision. The combined energy of hundreds of crystal formations concentrated on the Thraxian flagship, its ancient armor and advanced shielding proving inadequate against such overwhelming power. The command ship lasted perhaps 3 seconds longer than its escorts. Then, it too joined the expanding field of debris that had once been the most powerful raiding fleet in the galaxy. In less than 2 minutes, it was over. 300 warships reduced to scattered atoms, their threat to galactic peace eliminated with surgical precision. The planetary weapon powered down slowly, its crystal formations dimming as the accumulated energy finally dissipated. Marcus staggered as the neural link with Princess Laurelii began to fade, the incredible strain of their shared consciousness finally catching up with him. She caught his arm as he nearly fell, her own exhaustion evident in the way her opalescent skin had dimmed to a pale silver. "We did it," she whispered, amazement and disbelief mingling in her musical voice. "We actually survived." "More than survived," Marcus replied, looking at the tactical display that now showed empty space where the Krillian fleet had been. "We won." The communication channels erupted with voices as the full scope of their victory became apparent. Captain Martinez was shouting damage reports, and casualty figures. Commander Tyrell was coordinating search and rescue operations for any surviving enemy personnel, and both admirals were demanding explanations for how a single planet had just eliminated an entire fleet. But Marcus only had eyes for Princess Laurelii. Through their fading mental connection, he could feel her struggle to process what they had accomplished together. The neural link that had allowed them to control the planetary weapon had also created something unprecedented, a true partnership between human and Zephyrian consciousness. "Princess," Ambassador Harrison's voice cut through the chaos on the communication channels. "The peace accords. We still need to complete the ceremony." Princess Laurelii straightened, her royal training reasserting itself despite her obvious exhaustion. "Yes, of course. The treaty must be finalized while both our governments are witnessing." They made their way back to the embassy through crystal caverns that still hummed with residual energy. The halls were filled with diplomats and military personnel, all talking excitedly about the impossible victory they had just witnessed. But Marcus noticed that many of them stepped back respectfully as Princess Laurelii passed, their expressions mixing awe with something approaching reverence. The main conference room had been hastily prepared for the signing ceremony. The peace accords lay open on the central table, their pages covered in the flowing script of multiple languages. Representatives from both governments stood at attention as Princess Laurelii and Ambassador Harrison took their positions. "Before we proceed," Princess Laurelii said formally, "I wish to address the involvement of the Thraxian Empire in this attack." The holographic displays showing Admiral Chun and Admiral Sulthanes flickered as both leaders leaned forward with intense interest. The evidence recovered from the destroyed fleet clearly indicates direct Thraxian participation, she continued. This was not merely a Krillian raid, but an act of war by a third party designed to prevent our alliance. Admiral Sulthanes spoke first, her crystalline armor reflecting the light from the displays. "Your Highness, if the Thraxian Empire is willing to commit warships to prevent human-Zephyrian cooperation, then this alliance has become more crucial than we realized." "Agreed," Admiral Chen added grimly. "Our intelligence suggests the Thraxians have been manipulating conflicts throughout this sector for decades. A unified response may be the only way to counter their influence." Marcus watched Princess Lyralii as she processed the political implications. Through their fading mental connection, he could sense her mind working through the complex web of galactic politics, calculating strategies, and alliances that stretched far beyond the immediate peace treaty. "Then, we proceed," she said finally, "but this treaty will be just the beginning. Our peoples must work together not only to ensure peace between us, but to address the larger threats facing all free civilizations." Ambassador Harrison nodded and lifted his stylus to sign the accords. As he wrote his name in flowing script, Marcus felt a profound sense of history being made. This simple ceremony represented the end of a bitter conflict and the beginning of an alliance that could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. Princess Lyralii signed with equal ceremony, her elegant script flowing across the document in characters that seemed to glow with their own internal light. As she completed her signature, both holographic admirals formally acknowledged the treaty's ratification. "The peace between the Terran Federation and the Zephyrian Empire is hereby established," Admiral Silthanes announced. "May this alliance bring prosperity to both our peoples." The conference room erupted in cheers and applause, but Marcus found himself watching Princess Lyralii's face rather than celebrating. Through their mental link, he could feel her emotions: relief at the successful completion of their mission, satisfaction at the defeat of the Krillian fleet, but also something else, a sense of loss, perhaps, at the knowledge that their unique partnership would end as the neural connection faded. As the formal ceremonies continued around them, Princess Lyralii moved closer to Marcus, speaking quietly, so only he could hear. "The mental link is almost gone," she said softly. "Soon we will return to being simply ourselves, rather than the merged consciousness we became." Marcus nodded, feeling the fading connection like a phantom limb. The experience of sharing thoughts and emotions with another being had been unlike anything he had ever imagined. Losing it felt like losing a part of himself. "Will there be any lasting effects?" he asked. "Unknown," she replied honestly. "Zephyrians have never formed such a deep link with a human before. The neural patterns are too different for our xenobiologists to predict the outcome." Before Marcus could respond, Commander Thyrell approached with a datapad in his hands. "Your Highness, we've completed the analysis of the debris field. We recovered data cores from several Thraxian vessels, including the flagship." Princess Lyralii accepted the datapad and began reviewing the information. As she read, her expression grew increasingly troubled. Through their fading link, Marcus could sense her alarm growing. "What is it?" he asked. "The Thraxian operation was larger than we realized," she said grimly. "According to these records, they have similar missions planned against 6 other potential alliances throughout the galaxy. They intend to keep all the younger races divided while they expand their own empire." Marcus felt a cold chill as the implications became clear. The attack on Zirian Prime hadn't been an isolated incident, but part of a systematic campaign to prevent any cooperation between the galaxy's emerging civilizations. "We have to warn the others," he said. "Yes, and more than that." Princess Lyralii looked up from the datapad, her large eyes reflecting determination. "We need to actively oppose them. The alliance between our peoples was just the first step. Now we must reach out to other civilizations, build a coalition strong enough to counter Thraxian expansion." Ambassador Harrison, overhearing their conversation, moved closer with obvious concern. "Your Highness, are you suggesting a military alliance against the Thraxian Empire? That would be an enormous escalation." "The escalation has already occurred," she replied firmly. "They fired the first shot when they tried to prevent our peace treaty. Now we must respond appropriately." Marcus found himself nodding in agreement. The tactical situation was clear. The Thraxians had declared war on the very concept of cooperation between younger species. The only effective response was to prove that cooperation could make them stronger than they could ever be individually. "What do you need from us?" he asked. Princess Lyralii smiled, and through their fading mental connection, Marcus felt her gratitude and affection wash over him like warm sunlight. I need a human military advisor who understands both warfare and diplomacy. Someone who has proven he can work effectively with alien species. The implication hit him immediately. She was offering him a position with the Zephyrian Diplomatic Corps, a chance to continue working together even after their neural link had completely faded. You're asking me to leave the Terran Defense Corps? I'm asking you to help save the galaxy, she replied simply. Your superiors will understand the strategic value of having a human representative involved in building an anti-Thraxian coalition. Marcus looked around the conference room, noting the continuing celebrations as diplomats and military officers toasted the successful peace treaty. These people had no idea that their victory was just the opening move in a much larger conflict. The real war was just beginning. When do we start? He asked. Princess Lyraliai's smile brightened, and for a moment he could feel her joy through their fading connection. Immediately. According to the Thraxian records, their next target is the Andromedan Federation's negotiations with the Crystalline Collective. If we can reach them in time, we can turn potential enemies into allies, Marcus finished. And start building the coalition we'll need to stop the Thraxians. As they began planning their next mission, Marcus reflected on the incredible journey that had brought him to this moment. 12 hours ago, he had been a simple soldier following orders. Now he was a key figure in a galactic alliance that might determine the future of dozens of civilizations. The neural link with Princess Lyraliai continued to fade, but something deeper remained. A partnership based on mutual respect and shared purpose, strengthened by their unique experience of merged consciousness. They had proven that humans and Zephyrians could work together not just as allies, but as true partners. There's something I need to tell you, Princess Lyraliai said quietly as they worked on the tactical projections. The neural link we formed, it may have changed us both in ways we don't yet understand. Marcus paused in his calculations, looking at her with concern. What kind of changes? Unknown. But I find myself thinking in patterns that seem very human. And you appear to be processing information in ways that are distinctly Zephyrian. She met his gaze steadily. We may have become something new, Marcus Chun. Something neither fully human nor fully Zephyrian. The thought should have been terrifying. Instead, Marcus found it strangely comforting. If the future held conflicts as complex as the one they had just survived, perhaps the galaxy needed beings who could think beyond the limitations of any single species. Then, we'll figure it out together, he said simply. Princess Lyraliai nodded, her opalescent skin shifting through shades of blue and silver that somehow seemed more vivid than before. Together, she agreed, as we face whatever comes next. Outside the embassy windows, the twin suns of Zirian Prime were setting, painting the crystal formations in brilliant shades of gold and crimson. The planet that had witnessed the birth of an unprecedented alliance now stood ready to serve as the launching point for an even greater endeavor. Marcus stood beside Princess Lyraliai, watching the sunset paint alien skies in familiar colors. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new enemies, and new opportunities to prove that cooperation between different species wasn't just possible, but essential for survival in a dangerous galaxy. The human fighter had indeed shielded the alien princess, but in doing so, he had discovered something far more valuable than victory in a single battle. He had found a partner whose strength complemented his own, and together they would face whatever the universe chose to throw at them. The war with the Thraxians was just beginning, but Marcus felt confident about their chances. After all, they had already proven that when humans and Zephyrians fought together, they were capable of moving planets. Literally.